One day, an unfamiliar car drove up to our house. 3 or 4 long-haired young men came out of it, whom I had never seen before. Tiffany Murray describes in her memoirs the arrival of Queen at the Ridge Farm studio. For the small English county of Surrey, this really became a big event. Previously, representatives of the rock elite, who were still associated with the legendary Beatles, rarely showed up here. The unusual and bold image of the musicians immediately attracted the attention of local residents, who followed with interest everything that happened at Ridge Farm Studios. It was beneficial to record here in many ways. It was a new cozy studio, which was created almost from scratch by one of the Queen technicians responsible for lighting, Frank Andrews. This studio appeared on the site of our family farm in Surrey, he says. We brought equipment and equipment gear, and Queen was probably the first band that decided to record here. Before that, I helped them for a while on tours in Europe and Scandinavia. They were little known then, but Ridge Farm became the place where the real story of Queen began. They were satisfied with the house and studio, where they had the opportunity to calmly come up with songs, relax, and enjoy nature. Ridge Farm had a wonderful homely atmosphere that metropolitan bands could only dream of. Queen loved to play tennis, but the best of them, I think, was Freddie. She and John were so famously attacking Brian and Roger, and it was incredible. They felt really free in Surrey. They were immediately dubbed London Dandies. In those years, Queen wore bell trousers, but for playing tennis, Freddie chose more comfortable shorts, which were very short. They also played billiards, swam in the pool, and walked our dog in the park. After a busy day, in the evening everyone went to the pub, where, I admit, they rarely talked about music. I like to think that Freddie composed his Bohemian Rhapsody here, but maybe he came here with a ready-made idea. He asked me to bring his famous white piano to the studio because he didn't like playing ours. I don't know what exactly Freddie was unhappy about, as this piano was a matter of special pride for us. At that time, it was incredibly expensive. Roger Taylor. We rehearsed there for about a month before we recorded our 4th album, A Night at the Opera. We were photographed by invited journalists, but everything looked quite informal. We really wore what you see in these photos. I was wearing flared denim trousers, and Freddie was wearing short shorts that were fashionable back then. In those years, football players played in such shorts. We have just returned from a tour of Sweden, hence these terrible white clogs that we initially planned to use as souvenirs. One of the songs we were working on at the time was Bohemian Rhapsody, which made us a huge success. It remained at #1 in the UK for 9 weeks, followed by worldwide success. But we didn't just work in Surrey. We swam, played, and lost tennis to Freddie. He was probably a champion at his boarding school and seemed like a real ace to us. To be honest, I don't remember him ever losing. That summer was more like a youth club than a convention of rock musicians. In the evenings we would go down to the pub and then come back home to continue making music. It's a time of rest, Brian May recalls. Then photographers and reporters from Music Life magazine came to us. Our Japanese friends wanted to document the process of making the album. Therefore, we needed a short vacation so that they could safely take a few shots. And so we played tennis. I'm in my flare trousers, not the most successful outfit for this sport. None of us, I admit, was a good tennis player. We did it just for the cameras. We almost always lost to Freddie. Queen was filming part of our house back then, admits Tiffany Murray. The band chose the rehearsal room itself. They said it had good acoustics. Nevertheless, this was my home, my gym, and I really didn't like this sudden intrusion. I was only 6 years old at the time, and these were the usual whims of a child. The men, whom everyone called Rody, occupied my attic bedroom. They didn't sing or play anything, but they were constantly bringing and taking things somewhere. I felt like an angry teddy bear. I wanted to shout, "Why is this hairy man living in my room?" The next morning, I woke up to the noise from the guitar and drums. Then I went out into the hall, walked halfway up the stairs, and plopped down on the floor, pursing my lips angrily. The orchestra suddenly fell silent. Soon, my mother quietly entered the room. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but have you seen my daughter?" A very tall man with a guitar pointed at me. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry," she apologized. The man just shook his head. Gradually, the the group got used to me. I was watching them stealthily from the stairs, but they probably knew about my presence. I had never heard rock and roll music before. Very loud rock and roll. I often woke up in the morning to the shrill sound of a guitar, which made it seem like it was being played right next to my pillow. One morning, Mom got up very early. She heard the singing of a man who was sitting at the piano. He always came first, she later told me. Then I crept into the hall and listened. There were different parts of the song. The man apparently knew about my presence, so he suddenly turned around and asked, "Do you like it?" "It's fantastic," I answered honestly. "It's going to be a little long," he admitted and continued playing. It was Bohemian Rhapsody. My mom really liked Freddie. She thought he was a very sweet and shy person who didn't mind at all if our cats came into his room. Mom fed the band 3 or 4 times a day, and this tradition continued when other musicians came to visit us. Mitchell Cohen provides interesting evidence of the creation of Mercury's famous song in a special edition of Queen, The New British Invasion. "You're not going to ask me to interpret Bohemian Rhapsody, are you?" Freddie asked me once. "Not if you don't want it. Actually, I think it's useful. It's nice to hear that people are interested in the song. It is very good that many people think about the meaning, put forward their own versions. If I just conveyed the whole meaning, it would destroy all illusions, so." In England, they even organized a radio contest dedicated to Bohemian Rhapsody. People had to write what they thought the song was about. A lot of letters came to the editorial office, and some of them were amazing. Freddie once said, "We are addressing the widest range of people, not a specific part. It's boundless. We want to impress everyone. We have become more disciplined than before. Now we have more fans, and I think we have developed and matured with the audience. But this does not mean that we have lost old fans because of this, who bought our first album and know what Queen really represents. Every year, we get a lot of sophisticated fans."